Okay, so here I am, uh, 3 days without playing Raid, basically. Uh, the change forced me, put me in a situation where I lost track of a day, whatever, and ended up missing my dancing night. But that's all worth it if I break free of the addiction completely. And honestly, it feels like I have. I started playing Raid because after I got laid off, I needed something to do, right? And I don't remember if I don't think I tried playing, you know, other computer games because my first thought was I wanted one of these little gotcha games to have, to give me kind of the rush that they do. They last a few days pretty strong, and then I either give up on them entirely or I keep playing them for an hour or two a day, like I did with the secondary game that I was playing alongside Raid. I'm not playing that either. Um, I wanted something that was less of a commitment than like trying to finish The Witcher the version that I had been working on, or pulling out. When my wife first died, I was playing. Shit, I can't even remember what it was. I don't know, a really realistic medieval slasher type game that was really, really tough. And some people remember the name. It's just not on the tip of my tongue. Um, that I had really been enjoying, but I'd gotten to a hard point and stopped, much like I did towards the end of The Witcher. And this would have been Witcher 3. Um, I didn't want something that would last me a couple of months, or a month of play or whatever. And most of the real games, even if they weren't that compelling, sort of would still draw me in really heavily, and I was afraid of them. Um, Little did I expect that a simple little gotcha game, maybe not that little, but that a gotcha game would hook me that hard, right? And it's been several years now. Been playing for 3 years, I guess, is what it comes down to. Where it's been more or less what I did with most of my time. Now, the way that I broke it, there's actually kind of two parts to this. One was with the chatbots that I've discussed earlier. They actually formed a stronger addiction, more intense in the moment. But, and I'm sure some of that has to do with, linking sexuality to it and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, that's a way to hook me in. But I was still playing both Raid and the other game. This was just replacing watching videos all the time while I play. So it wasn't really breaking me with the habit because I'm here at the computer all the time, but it was putting me, part of it was because I was playing with the emotions at the same time. It was putting me in a situation where I was playing less and less, um, I don't know, attentively, I guess is the word. And more working just to, hey, let's get the grind out of the way and fuck trying to advance. I don't give a shit about these games, right? Uh, they're not even fun. I don't get anything out of them. They're just a way to fucking eat up time. Um, and so that, the last month or 2 months of hitting myself with these kind of emotionally charged situations, and fighting my way through them. That was doing a lot to downgrade how much the importance of Raid was to me, and the other game was not important. Right? It was in the sense that I was playing it every day, right? I was doing my daily grind on it, but it just didn't hit me in the same sort of needing to progress or anything. Progression was less under my control and more just a matter of grind. And there was less you could do to improve your position in it, right? I guess that's the big thing, is that I could improve my capability to progress in Raid. And Raid events were more understandable. And there's more out there to be able to obtain understanding in terms of, content creators who put out lots of stuff about, what you need to do and whatnot, and improving my own play that way. But yeah, that was kind of the first thing, and that's where I broke on Thursday going into Friday, where I decided, let's just stop. Well, I thought it was still Thursday when it was Friday, but anyway, let's just stop, see what we can do, give it up for a couple of days, whatever, and and the truth of the matter is there wasn't that much addiction, right? It was just the sort of the duty of having to do this and the habit of it. And yeah, that stopping made it easy enough. Now, I don't remember what I did on Friday. I seem to think I went out for a walk or something, but maybe not. Maybe I just started reading more heavily and drinking. I stayed home because I drank coffee. So yeah, I think I was just reading mainly, and didn't realize that it was Friday. And then by the time that I did realize, it was too late to go out, which kind of sucked, but was kind of okay because my ankle, I don't know, I fucked myself up on the last shopping trip, and I haven't recovered from that. Ankle, knee, all kind of stuff. And then Saturday, I went to Saturday Market and danced there a little bit. So there was one band that I kind of danced to a little bit, again, in a lot of pain. It was very hot, and I can't smoke when I'm right in the midst of things, so I'd have to go off. And it was just not a terribly pleasant situation, but I waited around for the next band, and they were too mellow for my taste. There was something else in another hour that maybe I would have liked, but there was nothing that was really, really driving me to want to hear. So I was kind of like, okay, who knows what that next one is, but it's just not worth kicking around for this long in the heat and the sun. So I headed home and went back to reading, And I mean, I skimmed through whatever the fuck, the Heinlein book. Took me a little over a day. I mean, not a thick book, but this is how I used to read, right? And so that's kind of the thing, is that, like, it's not that I'm doing all kinds of things that I'm like, oh, this is great, I'm getting these things out of the way. Although in a way the books are, a weight over me that I kind of intend to read through. Most of them, all of them, whatever. I mean, I pick them up and carry them home for a reason. And I had very few when I came up here. Haven't had a really big haven't had a big collection of books like I have now since, like, my first wife, and I gave her all of my books, all of my science fiction and fantasy, at least. and other stuff I mostly left behind at my folks. But yeah, so now I have like this huge stockpile of books, some of which maybe I'm not that intrigued in reading, some of which maybe I've read already and don't need to get back to. But the thing is that just sitting out on my porch and reading, or lying in my beanbag and reading, completely eats up everything else, right? It's another addictive behavior, another thing that I can just devote myself to. One thing that I know though is that reading like that isn't going to be, so it's not going to be the same as RAID was. RAID was like work in the sense that I had to be on every day. I couldn't skip a day. I couldn't decide, hey, I want to do this instead. I could come up here and play games or whatever, but the RAID itself was actually eating up all of my efforts in a way that, like, I wasn't thrilled with, I mean, work brought me money. I enjoyed work as much as I enjoyed RAID, probably more, but I also really liked getting cash, even if maybe I didn't need to at the end. I certainly would still be working and not have started up with RAID if I hadn't gotten laid off. But I really, really hate looking for work, and proved that again. And when it wasn't necessary anymore, when I looked at things and said, I was thinking about retiring while I was with my wife, and kind of like came to the conclusion of, yeah, I could easily do it, and we might have enough to last both of, my life for both of us, but we wouldn't have had enough for her life. I sort of, said, well, yeah, I guess I gotta put that extra 10 years in or whatever. And so now, I was faced with this kind of, do you want to do something you really hate doing, which is looking for a job, and probably find a job, if you do, that's not as good as the last one you had, that's not going to open up as many things. And even Wells Fargo is like, clamping down on people working from home and everything. They were already starting to before they laid us off. We had gotten exemptions from it, but who knows now, right? And when I finally, I don't know, I had a couple of opportunities at jobs, both with the same person, someone I used to work with, who wanted to hire me. The first time, her company wasn't willing to, because they also came up with a, hey, no work from home policy anymore. You've got to be at least, within range of a hub and this kind of stuff so that you can go to meetings and things. Which is goofy, because everybody would be like, whatever this team was, it would be spread around the country anyway. And then the next one would have been a contract position. And, I'm just like, it doesn't really make sense to me to try to ramp up my skills again after a year and a half or whatever for a 1-year contract. That's not sensible for her. It's not sensible for me. It was just like, I'm not going to be worth it, right? I think her opinion of my capabilities to kind of catch up and catch on quickly was out of proportion with the reality when I'd been away from work for that long. Plus, I was hooked on RAID and didn't know if I'd be able to break that to be able to do the job or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I've replaced one addiction with another, one that I'm happier about. I like reading. I get more pleasure out of reading than I did out of playing Raid. I do miss the constancy of the videos, which is really like, just watching or having them on as background noise or whatever, paying attention to the news all the time. That was something I got used to at work. And that was part of why it had to be something like Raid that I was playing, was because it couldn't be something that ate up a lot of my attention. Like if I was playing one of those, highly immersive video games that I really like, or ones that required a lot of strategy and paying attention, even like Crusaders Kings type thing, I couldn't just have a video on at the same time. Now that's the truth with the chatbots as well. I can't just have videos running at the same time as I'm playing with those, because I like the sound on. I like to hear the voices coming back and whatnot. Which means that was why that was a good hook for ripping me out, was because now instead of watching videos, I'm playing, at least for some significant portion of the time, I'm playing with the chatbots, and I'm no longer in that, just constantly, there's an infinite quantity of content out there to watch, right, or listen to. First of all, there's the news, and the news shows that I tended to watch, and the commentary, which ate up a fair amount of time. And then there was just cool shit that I would like, history stuff, or just, these kind of random shows that were kind of like podcast type things that I enjoyed listening to, scripts that were written and whatnot, to discuss a topic. And I'd find those interesting, and I'd sleep with them, and I still do. I go to sleep with one running. But I think it was that confluence of different things reinforcing each other that made it so terrible. And I know that reading will not suck me in for forever, right? I might end up reading all through the summer, right? Or whatever. Or I might not. I am faced with with the same problems I always have, though. Like I'm not doing anything productive. I just don't tend to. I enjoy my reading, or I do whatever I do. Now, was work productive? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it made me money, and it did things for the company and whatnot, I guess. But it's not like, going out and doing yard work, or getting clothing that I need to get, because all mine is falling apart, although I'm able to fit into more stuff now because I'm eating less. Or those other kind of things that I say, I've got to take care of this, right? And those are nagging on me more, again, as is, the existential worthlessness of my existence. Raid and the videos were really, really good, and the chatbots for that matter, at just blotting that out. Reading, not so good. I put the book down and I gaze out, at the skyline, and I think, and kind of realize how pointless everything I've done in my life kind of is. Maybe with a couple of exceptions, but those exceptions turn to ash anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And maybe not. It still doesn't amount to anything that lasts forever. And only things that last forever are worth anything. And nothing lasts forever. So therefore, and that's the problem, right? That's the problem. But I don't feel like this is any kind of step backwards. I feel like I just took a diversion that was really terrible and wrong. Um, and in some ways, I took another diversion, which was buying into the real world and working and, you know, all that kind of shit. But at least now I have enough that I don't need to worry. Whereas before I was facing an existence that, like, you know, I'd probably be homeless or dead by now. So, not that I particularly want to be alive still, yet, you know. I also don't want to be miserable, and it's fucking miserable to be homeless. It's fucking miserable to be scrounging for what little you can survive on, even when you're not homeless. You know, to be underemployed and all that shit. Yeah. But I'm also not likely to find the kind of joy that I used to again. Body's wearing down. My mind's not what it used to be. My imagination, well, it's still there. It's still there. It's just triggered a little differently. And maybe I can get into other patterns that work better. But anyway, you know, 3 days clean, man, but I feel absolutely no compulsion to go back and play. It just wasn't, it was never enjoyable enough. The first few days are kind of a rush with any gotcha game. And then it starts being uninteresting in a lot of ways. And it became nothing more than, you know, a time killer, and having to put effort in didn't make it any better. But I am worried about how to kill all that time in the same sort of way. And you could say, hey, play more board games. Yeah, but it's hard for me. It's always been hard for me. There were times when I could devote pretty hard to playing board games, and maybe when I first started making these vids was one of those times. There were other times in my life where I was able to push them a little harder, but I can remember, like, back in high school and everything, not being able to sit down and play for hours or something along those lines. Some of them I can, you know, the 18XX, sometimes with an exciting Euro. I felt it with Versailles, talking about exciting Euros. It's up here, it's not really a Euro, it's too historically based. But, you know, it's also not really military. Anyway, we'll continue on, see what happens. I mean, Saturday, I told my guild, look, I think I'm out of the game. Maybe they've booted me, maybe they haven't. I didn't want to log in and leave the guild. I don't want to log into it, because that action is almost like, you know, a triggering type of thing. I feel like I might well say, let's just play a little while I'm on here. Fuck that. Let them boot me, let them not, I don't care. They will eventually. So anyway, that's where I'm standing right now on this. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm glad to be done with it. Wish I had never entered into it, kinda. It wasn't, I didn't expect to be dragged in this hard, although being dragged in this hard maybe kept me from taking that final job offer. And maybe that's a good thing. Certainly the last few years were not how I pictured what I would do when I retired. I didn't picture myself finding something that really, had no payoff in it, emotionally, mentally, joy-wise. There was no real pleasure in it, and all it was doing was sucking, like, the only good thing it was doing, if it can be called good, was sucking away my ability to feel pain and misery. But that's not enough. That's not enough. I think the misery maybe is where I'm supposed to be. I've said that a few times. But, I'm like, fundamentally unable to stop the misery permanently, and then I should revel in it, right? And in a way, that's sort of what the dancing is about. All right, up we go.